very interesting timing, and, that was one heck of a performance.
Max Olson, theathletic.com senior college football writer. Max, I know it's not a football topic, but the Brandon Miller,
please
Alabama.
Don't make me talk about that one. Oh,
okay.
my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, I won't. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good. I'm joking with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, that's a tough situation there for sure, and you can't lose sight of the victim in all of this, obviously, and what's going on there. It's pretty startling.
So what are your thoughts this week, the last time we spoke with you about a week ago, but your thoughts, in fact, no, we didn't, because you were snowed in, I believe, in
right.
Lincoln. But you've seen the stories we've had from different angles, guests, writers, media, others involved with schools on yet again another week about to go by, and the Pac-12 doesn't have their TV deal. I wish them the best, I really do. But your thoughts about Apple TV Plus and that story being popped out?
Yeah, not surprising. Certainly it seemed like, you think back to early in this process when the Pac-12 announced, last summer, that they were going to open up these conversations. You knew that the end game was not to, that George Kliavkoff's preference was not to re-up with the current partners, but to take it to market and see what he can get from these streamers. And so it makes sense that, they're trying to get whatever they can from Amazon or Apple or whoever. But, man, it just seems like the longer this drags on, the worse it looks. And, certainly, like, you already had modest expectations to begin with that, that this money needs to be similar to the Big 12 and the deal they struck, and needs to be similar to the ACC. And now, certainly, I feel like just the pressure on the commissioner there to deliver a deal that is acceptable at this point, it has got to be cranked all the way up, with, especially when, as we all know, these things, are connected to granted rights and all that. And so, yeah, I certainly have my own opinions on, like, whether going the streaming route makes sense, but at this point, he's got to just get the money, bottom line.
Max, what do you think? Is it the overall number that they can't get past that has slowed this up? Are they trying to fix too many of Larry Scott's mistakes in this as well, just in one fell swoop?
Yeah, you're certainly starting in a bad position with the Larry Scott tenure that preceded you. You're starting from a bad position, as we know the Big 12 did, where you're losing two big brands going into these talks, right? So that adjusts the value and the perception, at least of what you're bringing to the table. They're going into these talks, but then also, yeah, in terms of, like, what you're shooting for here, man, like, it's now that and I think that it all goes towards, like, the savvy of what Brett Yormark did in jumping in line and getting the deal done that he got, was, I think it set a pretty high bar for you now. And it's like, do you get it all in one deal with Apple or somebody else, or can you find some way to get a lot of money from a streamer and still have the right kind of partnership with an ESPN? Like, I think that's the question here going forward. But I think you guys are probably right that every day this drags on. We all remember the anxiety that the Big 12 has had in the past couple of years when there's just this kind of uncertainty. It's no fun for anybody.
You mentioned Brett Yormark there. As time has gone on, and now he's going to be, coming up close to, I guess, a year later on this summer of having officially been on the job. But just what kind of continued responses or feedback do you get on the job that he's done early on in this first year as commissioner?
Yeah, I think the thing that I probably underestimated a little bit too, when you think back to Halloween when they were getting this deal done to extend with ESPN and Fox, was like, you guys think about it, like, if Brett Yormark had not gotten the deal he was looking for there, and they said, okay, we'll wait till spring of 24 and we'll take this to the open market and we'll get more money. Like, do you guys think the Pac-12 would maybe be trying to poach Big 12 schools right now?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just the defensive move by that was probably important too, and I didn't think enough about it. But the Brett Yormark tenure so far, like, it's just crazy from the day he took over, or was even announced that he was going to take over, how much has happened in college athletics since then. And so I feel like he's constantly been having to work on these things and be talking to a lot of different parties and stuff. And honestly, now that the Texas and Oklahoma deal is done, I'm curious to see, because that was one of the big things on the agenda here, and as well as the TV, I'm interested to see what Brett Yormark's Big 12 looks like, because I think that not having a lot of clarity on that situation has probably made it tough to kind of move forward with all the initiatives and big ideas that he has for this conference. Now that you know what it's going to be from 24 on, I think this next year is going to be really interesting to see kind of what his vision is, what he's figured out to the Big 12, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and kind of like when he talks about modernizing it and things like that, what does that look like?
You wonder how many times in the history of the Big 12, which started back in 1996 when they've had, maybe 4 or 5 and an interim commissioner in between, how many times have we seen among the 12 teams who will remain after Texas OU leave, and even maybe Texas and Oklahoma, all of them seem to have respect for the commissioner. With all due respect to Bob Bowlesby, and there are things you could pick at him, but have you ever seen it this united towards one person who's been able to come in and get this kind of off the ground, off the canvas?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I don't know how much of a relationship there is between Texas and Oklahoma and the current Big 12 commissioner, just because of the kind of strained situation he walked into, and the fact that you've had to have some meetings without them since taking over. But I think that all goes back to where this started, which was, I think you're right, for kind of like the history and the perception of the Big 12 is like a divided, board leading the way and stuff like that. And a lot of people, a lot of these like kind of political pressures and stuff with Texas and all that stuff. Like, I think the board was pretty united in the search to go hire that commissioner and why they chose Brett Yormark. And I think you continue to kind of see that play out, that they're behind him and they, he brought his own kind of vision and a very different type of experience than Bob Bowlesby when he interviewed for this thing. And I think so far that partnership's been pretty good. And you've got these schools kind of feeling like, okay, let's see what he's going to do here. And let's get behind, a pretty ambitious vision for the future of this conference.
Max, are there 2 times a year for you now when the transfer portal is open and when it's not?
Sorry, you cut out. Can you say that again?
Are there 2 seasons for you when the transfer portal is open and when it's not?
It's a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, honestly, it's since the window closed, I think a month ago, it has been a lot slower in terms of transfers. That stuff has really gone quiet here, I feel like, over the past few weeks. And I think that kind of tells you the window has worked a little bit in terms of, it's pretty chaotic for the 60 days a year that it's open. But I think the coaches got their wish here that you're not seeing a bunch of guys hop in the portal here when these windows aren't open. So, yeah, that's a positive, and it leaves me with plenty of time to do other stuff, that's for sure.
Max, how's our buddy Matt Rule doing up in Lincoln right now? How's that continued to progress as they get geared up for spring ball?
Yeah, off to a really positive start. It seems like, I think the people of Nebraska, obviously at the time of the coaching change and stuff, you're pretty heartbroken about the Scott Frost era not working out. But like it does seem like Matt Rule has been really well received in Lincoln. I think just his enthusiasm for Lincoln, Nebraska, and for Nebraska athletics, like not just football, and like he's a guy that is like going to all the basketball games and all the sports and stuff, and like really he and his staff have just been all over the state and recruiting and stuff. Like I think the feedback so far that I've heard has just been really impressed, and just how, obviously, as you guys know, how detailed these guys are and kind of their big blueprint for how they do it. Like it seems like it's been a really positive fit so far.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because his first year at Temple, we know didn't go well. We know what happened his first year at Baylor. It was a loss to Liberty to kick off the year, and then, of course, a terrible year. But they turned it around on how, if they understand the way he works, because it's not usually going to go from where they were, which is not much room other than to go up. But if they're ready for how he kind of builds or tries to rebuild things. Max,
do they have patience in Lincoln for maybe not a super quick start, I think is the question.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets to a bowl game his first year, knowing you and I and anyone that's watched them, I mean, that's a hell of a deal. But he's also
you got me thinking about Buckshot Calvert over here.
Yeah, I know. Believe me. But his normal MO or DNA is to go backwards first and then move forward. And some people go, well, lower the bar even further, and then whatever you do after that, it's nothing but gravy. I don't think he does that on purpose, but I have actually seen people who have said that before. If you could name Brett Yormark or compare him to an animal, which animal would he be?
Which animal would he be? Oh my gosh, this feels like a trap. I don't know. He's pretty. I mean, he's pretty relentless, isn't he, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What comes to mind? I don't know. You've drawn a blank here.
I mean, he's like
A leopard? Somebody
like
put a
like
leopard.
like a puma.
Yeah.
Like strikes fast, and I kind of out of nowhere. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Wow. You're really like throwing me some randoms today. I love it.
Somebody said a viper snake. Oh God. A honey badger. No, that's only for Tyrone Matthew. It was a random question. I know. It was. Craig's disgusted by me asking.
It's just so random. It's just so entirely random.
Did that come from your brain or the chat room?
If the moon were made of spare ribs, would
Yeah, like
I know I would.
I saw somebody bring up leopard, and it made me ask a question. Just something different, trying to keep you off. How much of that snow has melted, by the way, if that you were underneath?
We're doing better, Smokey. I appreciate. I tell you guys that getting to shovel 12 inches of snow is a hell of a workout. It does take about 2 hours at my house, but it was a heck of a workout last Thursday. So, yeah, I missed you on that. But, yeah, the snow has melted. The roads are safe. We're doing okay here. And as I told Smokey when it was snowing pretty bad here, it was definitely enough snow to bring the entire state of Texas to its knees. That's for sure.
Oh,
that was 12 times as much snow that you would have crushed us 12 times.
Yeah, 12 inches more than we ever would need. Now, when you use this the shovel, is it one of those big, huge shovels that gets big, massive pieces of snow at a time?
Yeah, I got the big shovel, but honestly, it's about time to invest in the snowblower, which I imagine they don't even sell those in Texas, I'm guessing. But I think that it's an expensive investment, but I think at this point, as I'm getting older, it's probably worth it here at some point.
Yeah, we're not going down to the local Home Depot and getting a Zamboni or anything in Texas.
I saw someone win one on The Price is Right one time, and Drew was like, "So where are you from, Doug?" And he's like,
"Florida."
He's like, "Malibu."
Max, I did have a couple more college football related questions for you. Although these are fascinating in their own right, but. With SMU in this Pac-12 expansion talk, I know there's nothing official on that front, but I was just curious from your perspective. There's a thought, when the Big 12 was going through their expansion a couple years back, that was a team that was looked at along with, Boise State and others. But how much of a sleeping giant, if at all, do you think that SMU could be if they had the backing of the Pac-12, albeit with, obvious questions about streaming and visibility and things of that nature?
Yeah, it's interesting, like the opportunity here potentially. I think certainly the perception, especially with this last round of Big 12 expansion, or at least, with Bob Bowlesby in charge, I think certainly the perception was SMU's not big enough. SMU doesn't move the needle enough for us. It doesn't. It's not additive in terms of value when you already have, the schools you have in Texas kind of dominating the TV markets and stuff like that. And so I've always understood why SMU, despite, being a candidate certainly in the last round, doesn't tend to get taken very seriously. And certainly you can understand why people at TCU would have opposition to that idea anyways, right? So you kind of understand where they fit relative to the Big 12, but honestly for the Pac-12, I kind of get the idea that, hey, can we plant a flag in DFW? Can, this kind of resources, Power 5 resources at a school like SMU, bring it up, as we've seen, obviously, TCU and Utah and others be really successful once you get called up like that. And then certainly, that could be additive for the Pac-12. And so it's it's interesting where it's maybe the Big 12 doesn't take you very seriously, but at the same time, they might be a little bothered by the idea of the Pac-12 having a little bit of territory within their region.
Max, when you look at that, and let's just say outside of the Pac-12, which we don't know what's going to happen, and again, hope everything works out for everybody. Do any of these schools do that for the Big 12 to the West? including San Diego State or someone like that? Is that, I know that they're connected, it appears that's going to be imminent with the Pac-12. What about UNLV? They've got this bustling city, and yet it's not because UNLV is there. Would that ever be down the road something that somebody would want to latch on to?
It's an interesting question. I think it's especially like if you're in the Mountain West right now, and a number of these schools, you're kind of wondering like, what is our future and what should we be shooting for here? Especially when you've seen the amount of realignment that's happened in other G5 leagues. But I think that as we've seen, like the goalpost or the standard or whatever has kind of changed a little bit every time we go through this stuff. And now I think you want, it used to be about TV market, and obviously that's important, but like, I do think, especially with the streaming stuff too, like just the size of the fan base also matters a lot more now too. And so, like, I know that was an advantage, I think, for UCF this time around. And certainly BYU. So like, I think that it just depends on like what the TV executives are looking for the next time we go through this stuff. But like, yeah, I think if you're UNLV or one of these Mountain West schools, every day you're probably having meetings and talking about like, what do we need to do to like get taken seriously next time this stuff happens?
Final thing for me, Max, any of those floated rules to help quicken pace of play, scratch your itch at all as a college football fan? I know you spent plenty of hours in a press box with these long games. I think most of us agree that the commercials are what drags out these games as long as they are, but do you have any particular thoughts on the ideas of trying to quicken the pace of play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're bad ideas. I think the running clock after incompletions was probably the one that surprised me a little bit. I'm kind of with you guys, like between watching them on TV and being at games. Like, I don't know, my reflex when I saw that news is initially like, it's the commercials, and it's definitely the replay system that you feel like makes the game feel longer. Right now, you can get into like this little stuff here and make these tweaks, and I'm sure there will be an actual change because that stuff adds up certainly. But will that mean shorter games that actually do mean fewer injuries? Like, I don't know. It's hard to really like kind of trust that would come true. I'm not like really violently opposed to it, but I kind of have the same reaction as you guys. They're like, I'm not sure. These little changes, they don't seem that bad. The NFL obviously has, it brings it a little bit in line with the NFL, but to some degree, I don't know that that's really kind of solving the problem that you feel when you watch a game.
Max, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always. Senior college football writer, Max Olson.
Gotcha, Paul.
Gotcha, Paul. Yeah. With theathletic.com. By the way,
the comment.
Hold on. Tide guy.